Jaya Rupana Bhagavad ki Jaya. Jaya Mustafa Srimad Maharaj ki Jaya. Acharya ki Jaya. Jaya Mustafa Srimad Maharaj ki Jaya. Jagat Guru Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Rupana Guru Bhagavad ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishad ki Jai. Shri Krishna Arjuna ki Jai. Kurukshetra Dham ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Okay. Haribo.
I feel like is there anyone who's never been to a Gita class before here tonight? Okay, yeah, and I think, okay, and Dulal and maybe Fred, you haven't been here for Gita class either.
I've been multiple.
Okay, could you maybe give us
Hey, Sula.
Hey guys.
Hi.
Maybe we could do like a super brief intro to Bhagavad Gita and then maybe take us to the chapter that we're reading. Every week we read one chapter of this scripture and we've been reading it continuously.
15 years.
We're getting old.
You said 15 years when I started coming.
I was gonna say, I think we just said 15 years, but like 25 or something. Anyways, it's been multiple decades, and it's called an epic. It's coming from an epic scripture, and it is an epic scripture for a reason, and it's taking place on a battlefield. And Sudarshan, if you can just tell us a little bit about.
Yeah, for those that are not familiar with Gita, you can see the cover of the Gita. You can see that there's Krishna's in the driver's seat of the chariot. His friend is a warrior named Arjuna, and you can see that there's two armies on both sides. So this conversation is taking place right before a battle, and it's you can say a time of great sincerity. The sincere question gets the sincere answer. So Arjuna is very conflicted. This battle is about to start. There's a battle that's going on for righteousness, but there's a larger picture that's happening that Krishna is going to illuminate in the Gita. Because Arjuna is saying, hey, if I'm just fighting this battle for myself, I don't want to do all this harm. I don't want to participate in this. They can have the kingdom, etc. I don't want to participate in this. And then Krishna gives some very surprising answers in chapter 2, which is immediately to say, and I'm going to give a brief, because we're going to read chapter 5 today. We try to read a chapter a week because this is a conversation, and there's a flow to the conversation. And it's important to catch the questions as they come and the answers as they come in their full extent. But the first thing that Krishna says to Arjuna is, you're not perceiving who you are properly. You think that you're a body about to engage with other bodies in a particular activity. Actually, what you are is a soul. You're a being of consciousness. And when we hear that, we don't even know what that means, honestly, because we're so completely caught up in this identity. But this identity is temporary. Whatever this egotistic version of ourself is going to die. So who are you actually, right, outside of the body? That's the first key question that Krishna talks about. It's called Atma Gyan. You have to understand that you're a soul. Okay, now that you understand that you're a soul, how do you live in this world? Right? And so Krishna starts to go into yoga. Everyone knows the word yoga. The word yoga is a lot deeper than what everybody thinks it is, because generally when people see yoga, it's like people doing physical exercise, which is good. These poses and postures are all very good, but they're all representing something far deeper, which is your posture toward reality. Your posture toward the waves of experience that are floating over the field of our consciousness. And yoga ultimately is coming from a verb. The verb is yuj in Sanskrit. So yuj means to connect or to link, and yoga means connected or linked or connection. Okay? So the purpose of yoga ultimately is to connect with the infinite. And so each of the chapters of the Gita will say a word and then yoga. So the first two chapters where Krishna starts to, he moves beyond Atma Gyan and starts to say, here's how to start to live your life in connection. We read chapter 3, which is called Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga means your actions have to be offered. And they have to be done without a sense of attachment. You have to offer them into the infinite. And then Jnana Yoga means you have to fill your intelligence, your knowledge capacity with the idea that my actions are a sacrifice into the infinite. And this principle of sacrifice is very, very important. Krishna first touches on it in Jnana Yoga, but he touches on it again and again throughout the Gita. And in the 4th chapter, he says something very important. Without sacrifice, there will be no happiness in this life or the next. You know, the major, you could say, the flow of programming that's coming to us is essentially saying, really what you're going to be happy is when you don't sacrifice at all and you get the maximum comfort with the least amount of effort. Right? That's sort of like the paradigm that everyone's getting programmed with. And it's actually exactly the opposite. You're going to find your joy, your purpose, and your connection in sacrifice. So to learn how to offer what you're doing without a sense of attachment, as what, you know, the word that's used again and again is juvati, which means literally offering. Offer your actions into the infinite and then receive what comes back to you as grace. You know, another word for grace is prasadam. So you have to start to reset your relationship with reality from one of exploitation, meaning like you look at the world around you and think, what can this thing do for me, right? And essentially what we're trying to do is suck energy out of the world and think that that's going to give us enjoyment. But Krishna's resetting that and saying, see yourself as a giving unit to reality and offer your actions to the highest degree of sacrifice that you can muster. So that's a very brief summary of 2 beautiful chapters, chapter 3 and chapter 4, which are actually quite detailed. And we'll have to wait till we run all the way through the Gita to read them again. Or you can read them on your own. And we're going to read chapter 5 today, which is a wonderful chapter, which ends in one of the most profound verses in the Gita. Bhaktaram yadvitarasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam yatanam shantamrichite. So we have a bunch of different versions of the Gita.
It's chapter 5 is what the path of renunciation of action.
Page 88, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Why?
It's 108 in the larger book, and then
Krishna is really.
I don't know what page it's on.
It's actually
Because he already did his.
I'm telling you.
Actually,
Well, I don't have
one.
Oh, so I can say it loud? 88 in the small book.
But actually,
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm so quiet.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so generally what we do is we try to read all the Sanskrit together that's on one page, and then we'll kind of pass the mic around and everyone can read a portion of the translations if you want to participate, and then we can discuss those as it comes up. And Prabhu, just thank you for joining. I just was wondering what was Prabhu's name this one?
Oh, Sahadev.
Sahadev, wow, beautiful. Very apropos name. For those that don't know, Sahadev is one of the brothers of Arjuna who this conversation is happening, so beautiful name. Okay, so we're going to start on this book. It's page 108. What page?
88.
Page 88.
This one, the hard one, the big hard one.
Okay. All right. So reading the Sanskrit together. Arjuna uvacha sanyasam karmanam Krishna Punayogam cha samsasi yashteya etayorekam ame bruhi sunishtitam Shri Bhagavan vacha sanyasya karma yogascha nisheyasa karabhau tayostu karma sanyasat karma yogo visheshyate Yasa nitya sannyasi yona dveshti na kamshati nirkandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchate. Arjuna said, O Krishna, you speak of renunciation of actions, and then again you speak of the path of selfless action. Therefore, please tell me clearly which is superior. The Supreme Lord said, both renunciation of action and the path of selfless action bring great benefit. The translations might be slightly different. Yet of the two, know that the way of selfless action is superior. Almighty Arjuna, know that one who is free from attraction and aversion is truly renounced, though performing action. For one who is free from duality easily attains liberation from bondage. So this is again hitting on a point that was made in the previous chapters, which is very, very important. So we all know the word karma. It's a very common word in today's lexicon. And generally, it's used in the sense of you do something wrong, it comes back to you, and it's like, that's your karma, right? But in Sanskrit, it's very interesting. The same word for action is also the word for reaction. You can't say the word action without saying reaction, in other words. So it's bound into the word. And so when Krishna's saying, do karma as yoga, he's saying, if you want to be removed from the reaction of action, you have to do the action without attraction or aversion. The action has to be done as an offering. It has to be done without a mood of attachment and a demand for a particular outcome. That's the way to make karma a yoga. So Krishna's saying, even a person who's doing action, who internally is doing it without a demand, just doing it as an offering, that's the person that's free from bondage. So very quickly, we're moving out of physical movement of the body into the plane of consciousness. And what Krishna is saying, and what he said very clearly in the last few chapters, is the intention behind the action is what is causing the reaction, not the action. Consciousness is causing reaction, and consciousness is receiving reaction. Okay? So you have to move into a much deeper plane of pondering and understanding why you're doing what you're doing. And it begins a process of very, very important self-exploration, self-examination, which is, what am I doing with my existence and why am I doing it? And if you are actually doing that, you're separating yourself from a lot of people. Most people are very reactive and activating themselves very much based on some type of reflex, right? You get an urge, you want to satisfy it. You know, something comes at you, you want to hit back, right? You're not actually pondering, where am I going, who am I, and what am I actually doing within this world? So Krishna's moving this very much into a conscious consideration of what are you doing and why? And that why, that intention, becomes more and more important as the Gita goes along. Okay. Any other thought or comment? Verse 4. Sankhya yoga prithat bala pravadanti nabandita samyak upayor vindate phalam yat sankhya prapyate sanam tat yogairapi gamyate ekam sankhyan cha yogam cha yavashyati sapashyati sanyasastu mahabhavo dukkam aptum mayogata yogaito nirbrahma nachitena adhigacchati.
So this version is probably a little bit different. This is an older book, so
Okay.
I'll just. It should be known.
Number 4.
Form. The learned do not support the opinion of the childishly foolish, mundane rationalists known as karma mimamsakas.
I think that's it.
Yeah, you should probably read this one.
Yeah, it's quite different. The path of renunciation, Sankhya Yoga, and the path of selfless action, Karma Yoga, are considered separate paths by the unwise, but not by the learned. One who perfectly follows either of these paths will achieve the result of both. Just briefly, the path of renunciation is very popular, meaning I gotta get out of here. This place is bad, it's full of pain and suffering and reaction, and I just want to get out. And then and be liberated from all full engagement in material life. And the path of selfless action is actually also completely freed from mundane existence. So they're not separate in that sense at all. The state achieved by the renunciation of action is also achieved by the performance of selfless action. One who sees these two paths to be one and the same actually sees. So that's what you were talking about. O mighty hero, without selfless action, mere renunciation of action is the cause of sorrow. But the wise man who engages in selfless action swiftly attains to the absolute. Any question can come up. It's okay then. Just go ahead.
Guys, just briefly on page 6, what Krishna is advising is, don't just pull yourself away from existence. Start to interact with his existence selflessly. Make your actions a sacrifice and an offering, ultimately to the Lord. Otherwise, you're just pulling out of what your soul actually wants. In the highest sense, the scriptures are teaching us that what you're actually craving is what's called in Sanskrit bhava and rasa. Rasa means taste, okay? It means you want to feel something wonderful. And the Lord is described as Akila Rasamrita Murti. He is the reservoir of all taste. And bhava means relationship. So the advice is, don't just pull away from reality. Start to interact with it as a giver, right? Otherwise you're going to feel pain if you're just renouncing. Because it's not natural for you. What you're seeking is actually feeling and relationship. But in a higher sense than, just, an exploitive, shallow relationship.
Prabhu,
Hare Krishna.
why does Sanskrit sound like Latin? What does it just mean that things have?
Might just be. I mean, it is similar. There are a lot of similar lexicon in Latin and Sanskrit. Sanskrit is said to be the oldest written language, and you can kind of trace it out. If you go to university and take a linguistics class, you're going to trace out Sanskrit spreading into a lot of different places. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Could I add one
Yeah,
thing?
please.
It just, and also, Krishna saying this renunciation is the cause of sorrow, because actually we're misidentifying the problem. When we think, this world is the problem, then you're not solving the problem. The problem is my relationship with this world. The problem is that I think that everything is for me. It's for me, that's for me, that's for me, which is an absurd idea when you really think about it. The whole universe is for me? But we have this idea that everything should be pleasing to me and it should act according to my will. That is the disease. The disease is not the world, but it is our relationship with the world, which actually has no fault. We will talk about that more later too.
Hare Krishna. Okay, verse 7, 8, and 9. Yoga yukto vishuddhatma vijitatma jitendriya sarva bhutatma bhutatma kurvannapi na libyate naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavid pashyan shriman sprishan jibran Ashnan gachan svavan svasan Pralapan visrijan grihnan Unmishan nishanapi Indriyateshu Vardanta iti dharayan.
The clean-hearted person, thus engaged in yoga, controls his mind and senses, becoming filled with affection and compassion for all beings. Although fully active, he is never implicated by any action. That's one of the nice things about Bhagavad Gita is you get a little window into different kinds of consciousness, right? And you're thinking like, oh, there's a place in consciousness where like you can feel affection and compassion for all beings. That's very nice, actually. And if we don't feel that way, then we can at least meditate on it, and it can kind of wash over us a little bit. Like, hey, that's a possibility in the world, that I may feel some type of like broadness in my relationship with the environment. And what's very amazing is, generally speaking, you find that elevated souls do have some type of like organic compassion in their dealings with anyone they meet. And it's very interesting to start to see, like, even some crazy circumstance arises and they're saying like, divine providence has brought this. Like the Lord himself has put this situation, like I'm happy for it. And so you're going, oh, well, how nice to read these different kinds of qualities that's possible to wash over. And you're going, oh, so the clean-hearted person, so some nature, what it's saying is some type of movement happens internally, right? The clean-hearted, that means inside something happens that purifies. And what's the outcome is I'll feel some type of affection for the people that I come into contact with. There will be some natural reciprocation in the environment. That's a very like happy place to be, right? Because the inverse of that is like a completely suspicious, envious, jealous, angry, cynical relationship with the environment. And then we can meditate on like, well, where would that take me? Right? And then you have to start thinking like, well, actually the things that I'm meditating on are carrying me somewhere. And maybe I do or don't want to go to where that thought is carrying me to, right? These are very important, like it starts off seeming subtle, but ultimately when we're saying, hey, this all moves into a subtle internal meditation, then those things actually matter very much, right? Because they cover our perception of reality. And so it's like, okay, if we want to be angry all the time, then like that will ultimately like cover our perception of reality so much so that generally speaking, the penance for any of the, you know, kind of sins or shadows, if you want to call them that, since the word sin is slightly out of vogue, but the shadows on consciousness, what they do is they isolate us. We have to know that. So the more that we're feeling isolated from our environment, and what does that mean? Isolated from the people that are around us, isolated from the relationships that are around us. That means that we're in some type of disconnected covering. And so then you're going, wait a second, we're talking about yoga, which means to connect. And then what that refines into is deeper and deeper. To whom, ultimately? But there is also a natural, if you connect with the center, then you connect with the totality. That's kind of the beginning, right? You water the root, you water the tree. So if you're connecting with your original nature and trying to find the source of things, you'll also have aftershocks of warmth towards everyone. So you go, oh, this is very sweet, actually, as a verse. You go, oh, this is a nice kind of aftershock. And then not being implicated by action, there's a lightness, right? Srila Guru Maharaj himself says, take it in the mood of a player. Right? We have so many roles that we're playing in our life, right? Maybe I'm a mom, maybe I'm a grandma, maybe I'm an auntie, maybe I'm a brother, maybe I'm a, all these things. There's a lightness to it, right? You're going, okay, I do my duty that's in front of me the best that I can, right? And I feel some warmth and divine providence has placed this circumstance in front of me. So then the realized karma yogi performs the activities of seeing, hearing, touching, smelling, eating, moving, sleeping, breathing, speaking, evacuating, grasping objects, blinking the eyes, and so on. And he understands. My sense organs, eyes, ears, skin, nose, and tongue function in relation to their respective objects of form, sound, touch, smell, and taste. And thus he considers, I do not perform any action at all. It's like, so, the mystery of the experience, right? They're saying you're a soul in a body passing through. And all of these things have their nature that you're in, and the hologram in your mind is created from these senses interacting with objects. But you don't know all the components of your own eye. You don't even know how many cones are in your eye and whether someone else has more cones in their eye and they see more light than you do, right? Because we're imprisoned actually in a very small world, and then all of our desire is based on a very slim perception of reality, right? And it's bound in that place. And then we're like a bot, basically, where it's just like, I want to see it, I want to eat it, I want to touch it, I have all these things like kind of endlessly dragging us in different ways. But there is actually more and more subtle functions. So they're saying actually what the senses like to do is they just want. That's all they want to do. And then the mind is a like and dislike machine. You need to know that. It is a little bit binary. That's why this endless scroll is so appealing, right? Because I like it, I don't, I like it, it's like, whee! But we must be something more deep than an accumulation of likes and dislikes, right? We must be. And then they're saying now you're moving into the realm of the mind, and what an amazing scripture to very carefully pull us through these different layers and say, you're not that. And then even the mind is considered a tool. Even the mind is not the most subtle function that you are, even though we use our mind. And it says it farther on in the Gita, your mind is your best friend or your worst enemy. So it's a very valuable tool on the journey, a not negligible aspect of the journey. However, what you are is even more subtle than your mind, right? And then they're saying now you're moving into, right, buddhi, which is like higher intelligence. And that's that part of you that's very subtly and most of the time kind of quietly shut down. That's like whispering, hey, you're not here just for these kind of things, you know? And you can angle yourself using those things. You don't have to just like endlessly pour all of these different items into your mind, right? Like no finite substance is going to give you an infinite thing. That's a premise. And if your soul is an infinite thing, then it's searching to resonate with something a little deeper than a finite thing, right? What it's searching for is much deeper. And then you're going, oh, now I'm not any of these layers. And so now you're starting to get a little idea. So now this idea that consciousness is fundamental is rising to the surface. And this chapter is getting us acquainted, right? Getting us acquainted with a little bit of the situation that we find ourselves in, right? You know, this peculiar set of windows that we all peer out of that are giving us seemingly lots of information, but still quite small in a relative sense, right? And then that's the way the universe is, whatever that little keyhole perception of reality is. So anyways, how amazing that Gita's carrying us through so many thousands of years ago, but very relevant to right now. And I think we're on 10 and 11.
That's right. Okay, verse 10 and verse 11. Brahman yadhaya karmani sangam tattva karotiya lipyate na sapapena padmabhadram nivambhasa kayena manasa buddhya kevalerindriyayami yogina karma kurvanti sangam tattva shuddhaye.
One who, though living in this world, selflessly offers all his actions to the Supreme Lord. It is not polluted by sin, as a lotus leaf remains on the water, yet is untouched by it. By giving up attachment, the karma yogis perform action merely through the body, mind, intelligence, and even the senses for self-purification.
Yes, so that's a brief description of the yoga. That's the actions that are performed by the karma yogi are purifying by that change internally of selflessly offering the actions to the Supreme Lord. Not only is there no pollution within there, there's purification in those actions. So this is a reset of your life. Not necessarily that you don't go to work every day or whatever it is that you're doing in life, but reset your relationship with reality internally and start to offer those actions and see what happens as a result of that connection. You're not in a dead world. You're in a world that is only populated by the energy of the Lord. And connect to that deeper essence that's underneath that. And that same day can be purification. start to do yoga in your life. Okay, 12, 13, 14. Yukta karma phalam tyakva shantim apnoti naishtikim ayukta kamakarena phale sakto nibadhyate sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayan nakartritvam nakarmani lokasya srijati prabhu nakarma phala samyogam svabhavastu pravartate. Would you like to read, brother, or Jaya?
Giving up attachment to the fruits of his actions, the materially unmotivated karma yogi attains constant peace or liberation from actions and reactions. But the fruitive worker, Sakamakarmi, is attached to the fruits of his actions, and he becomes implicated by his endeavors. Mentally renouncing all actions, the sense-controlled embodied living being resides happily within the city of 9 gates, 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, 2 ears, mouth, anus, and genital, neither acting nor causing work for others. The Lord does not generate anyone's ego of considering themselves the doer, nor their actions, nor their association with the fruits of their actions. These are all a result of their external nature of ignorance since time immemorial.
Brian, do you want to read the next one?
Is that
it?
Yeah. Everybody get that? We got it? All right, fantastic.
I think that the big point is also that you can't blame the Lord for your situation. You know, we've gotten ourselves, you know, our life has come to adjust. Sometimes something happens to us that's not very pleasant, right? And something happens to us, and we say, "Why, God? Why did you?" You know, this is absurd. The environment is so sweet and so perfect that whatever comes, if we can see that in the mood of actual submission, our angle of vision can change. And we can see, oh, this has come to actually adjust me in a way that is so wonderful that I can't even believe it. It's so precise. And the whole environment is actually adjusting everyone like this. It is a very beautiful thing. So we can't say, oh, well, God, why is it? He's not, we have our own free will that has gotten us into a situation where the world is actually coming to fix what I broke, not what the Lord broke. And that's a very wonderful thing.
So there's an important thing to take away just from these 3 verses that we said. And this is something that ultimately gets expounded on multiple times in the Gita. And sometimes it may sound like completely like, no way. But it's actually the truth. Krishna's saying, when you're in a particular state of yoga, the external situation is not going to disturb you. We're completely caught up in a paradigm that says, if I'm in this situation, I'm going to feel like this, and if I'm in that situation, I'm going to feel like that. It's a very animalistic paradigm. And when you're fully in the consciousness of your body and a relationship with reality of exploitation, you're going to feel like that. But there's a state of yoga where, despite whatever the external circumstance is, you can be in a state of joy. That has to be like, okay, maybe you hear that and you're like, nah, no way. But actually, it's the truth. That's actually possible. You're not, you're basically happy, right? As a Christian thing. He's residing happily in the city of nine gates, which means your body. Okay? With that proper relationship with reality. So this has to be taken in because it's completely counter to the paradigm that we've been programmed with basically ever since we've been born.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Like you're saying like happy, you're saying joy, but you're not really talking about like emotions because like doesn't Krishna say that like you will get hit with like the waves of passion, you will get hit with ignorance, and like you know this like sorrow or I'm sorry, emotions are like as alien to you as your body is, like their faculties. So like what like
Well, materialistic emotions. The soul
Yeah.
is actually a feeling unit.
okay.
Right? So there's different levels of feeling. When you're absolutely controlled by your animalistic mind, that's a particular level of emotion that can actually capture you and control you. Right? But it's not you. But that doesn't mean that the soul doesn't have the ability to feel. And these are things for us, like when we hear that, it's like, okay, let me just slot that away intellectually. Okay, I guess that's how it is, right? And what Guru Maharaj is saying many, many times is that this has to move out of the realm of theory, right? We have to actually start to practice these things so that it becomes tangible, right? Like Krishna says in the Gita multiple times, you have multiple layers. You are a conscious being. You're observing a reality through a very limited set of senses, okay? And we've gone through this before, but sometimes it's just helpful to go through it again, right? Our eyes see what percent of the light spectrum? 1%, right? Maybe 1.5, some people say. Okay. We're seeing 1.5% of the light spectrum with our eyes. Like, whatever we're seeing, as wonderful and rich and varied and amazing as it is not reality in any way, even if light spectrum was the only part of reality, right? Like, our ears hear a tiny little sliver of what is to be heard. Most sound is subsonic or ultrasonic to us. Subsonic and ultrasonic just means we can't hear it. It doesn't mean it doesn't have sound. This means it's totally just not something we experience. Our nose smells nothing compared to even other animals that we know, right? Our taste is nothing. I mean, you know, we've seen snakes, they're like navigating with their tongue. Like, there's a whole world that we're living in a teeny little sliver of. But because that's the sliver that we're perceiving, we're completely attached to it and dominated by it. That little sliver goes how we want it, we're just like, yay! And that little sliver goes how we don't want it, we're like, you know, like, it's ridiculous. We're dominated by this little teeny thing that we live in, and it's actually a prison. It's not even close to reality, even in the sense of what we perceive. But Guru Maharaj is saying, you have to understand this. There's a layer in you called your senses. And that those little slivers of vibrational data are getting projected into a hologram called your mind. And your mind's judging it. Your mind's going, oh, I don't like that one. You know, or I love that one. Right? And there's a thing that can override your mind. And it's called buddhi. It's called intelligence. It's called wisdom. It's called a higher sense. Where your mind's going, I don't like it. And your higher sense is going, shut up, dude. We're doing this. Right? This has to like literally move out of theory and become extremely real and practical within us. Like, this is not, I mean, it is very cool. Like, when you read it in Gita, you're like, wow, that's kind of interesting. But then it has to move out of like, wow, that's kind of interesting, into like, oh my God, I can feel my mind freaking out right now. Hey, buddy, why don't you just stop doing that, right? Like, you know, because most of us, if we just hear like, you're not your mind, that doesn't even sound like, what? What do you mean I'm not my mind? You know, and to be able to move into that observer state and observe the mind and not be the mind, be like, well, look at that thing, freak out. That's fascinating, right? And then be like, hey, stop freaking out. All right, now you're higher, right? There's some thing in you called buddhi, and it's very real, right? And Krishna says, when you can actually feel buddhi, then you may understand that there's something else illuminating buddhi. That's actually you. So all these things have to move out of theory. Guru Maharaj is emphasizing this over and over again. This has to move out of theory and has to be something extremely concrete and tangible to you. You have to experience this ultimately. And what Guru Maharaj is saying is, once you experience the soul, the revolution takes place. The revolution takes place once you experience the soul. Because otherwise, there's a little bit of like pressing forward on hope, right? And ultimately, these things have to become more and more and more real. But you're going to feel that within your life. You're going to start to feel relief in situations that would have previously freaked you out. You're going to start to be able to go through things that you didn't think you could. And you're going to start to understand that whoever you thought was you is not a thing that's permanent. It's a little manifestation that you can leave behind and move into a higher self. And ultimately, that higher self is meant to connect with God, meant to connect with the Lord, meant to be a loving unit in reality and be a serving unit and a giving unit and a contributing unit and a participating unit. But that's as the Gita goes along. Okay, sorry. Great thoughts, great questions. Okay. 15, 16, 17. Nadatte kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhu ajnanina vritam jnanam jnanam yanti jantava jnanena tuta jnanam yesham lashito samatmana yesham avidya jnanam prakashayati tatparam Tadbuddhayastadmanas Tanishtastat parayana Gacchantya punaragritam Jnana nirdutakanamasa.
The Lord does not generate anyone's ego of considering themselves the doer, nor their actions, nor their association with the fruits of their actions. These are all the result of their external nature of ignorance since time immemorial. The Supreme Lord accepts neither the sin nor the piety of anyone. The living beings fall into illusion because their knowledge is covered by ignorance. For persons whose divine knowledge is awakened, their ignorance is destroyed, and their wisdom, like the shining sun, reveals the supreme reality.
Mm-hmm.
One more.
Can you read 17 as well?
Oh, okay. Those whose illusion has been completely dispelled by knowledge always thinks of me, the Supreme Lord. I am their meditation, and they abide in me alone, hearing and singing the unending glories and pure devotion. Thus they are liberated from the mundane.
Hare Krishna. So, we can understand by just understanding the limited senses that we perceive our reality through, that we're not perceiving reality. And just from a sensory capacity, we understand that we don't even know what we're not perceiving. Not only that, we have no capacity to even imagine it. Right? And one of the fascinating things in current astrophysics is like, okay, none of the galaxies are moving properly, which means either all of Einstein's theories are wrong, or there's a tremendous amount of mass and energy in the universe that we have literally no ability to interact with it. And in order to make everything make sense, they have to create this substance called dark matter and dark energy that exists out there. Well, the reason why that galaxy is moving like that is because there's like some gigantic amount of energy out there that mass that we just literally have zero ability to interact with. We have no idea what it is. And you're like, wow, that's pretty fascinating. What percentage of the universe would that be? Well, somewhere between 95 and 98%. Oh, that's kind of problematic, isn't it? A little bit, maybe? It's like literally 98% of the mass. Either 98% of the mass of the universe is like completely inaccessible to us, or we have no idea what any of the laws really are. It's one of those two. But if you consider that, like, we don't have any ability to interact with 98% of the mass of the universe or the energy of the universe, it's like we have no idea what reality is. And what Krishna's saying is, ultimately, reality is conscious. And you're conscious. And you come from consciousness. And the Lord is the supreme consciousness. And you're meant to interact with Him. So what he's saying is, by this practice, you can start to interact with reality. Actual reality. Not some little sliver that you've decided to cast demands upon for the time that you're in the body that perceives that sliver. Right? That's an empty way of life. And very unsatisfactory. Like it's not going to satisfy you. So Krishna's referring, when you have this ignorance removed, supreme reality is revealed. And all this illusory pain is dispelled. Hare Krishna. Okay, 18 and 19. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Jaiva Swabhagecha Pandita Samadarshina Ihaiva Tairjita Sargo Yesham Samye Stitam Nana Nirdosham Hi Samam Brahma Tasmat Brahmani Te Stita.
The enlightened souls see transcendence within all living beings, whether the humble and learned Brahmin, the cow, the elephant, the dog, or the dog eater. Therefore, they are to be known as Pandit, men of true wisdom. Those whose minds are equipoised in Brahman master the cycle of birth and death while living within this world. By their perfect spiritual equanimity, they are always situated in transcendence.
Beautiful. So, as a knower of the soul, as a knower of reality, you start to see souls within everything. Everything is being populated by some portion of divine consciousness. And that feeling that I was mentioning before, which is mentioned previously, that feeling of compassion and affection and equanimity toward everything arises within that developed person. And that person, this is another word that's become common in Western lexicon, a pandit. But a pandita means someone who actually has real knowledge, not, some memorized bunch of facts, but actual knowledge of reality. Hare Krishna. Okay, 20, 21, 22. Na prahishyet priyam prapya no dvijet prapya cha priyam stira buddhira sammudho brahmavid brahmani sthitaha bahya sparshe svasaktatma vindatyadmani sukham Sarvama yoga yuktatma sukham akshayanam shnute yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkhayoganaya evate adhyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddha.
Absorbed in transcendence, endowed with steady intelligence, and free from the delusion of thinking of the body and associated objects as me and mine, the knower of the Absolute is neither happy when pleasant things come his way, nor sad when unpleasant things come his way. Detaching his mind from external pleasures, such a knower of the Absolute Truth tastes the inner joy of self-realization, then absorbing himself in meditation on the Absolute, he experiences
Inexhaustible
bliss.
22 also.
O son of Kunti, the pleasures that arise from the contact of the senses with their objects are the cause of unhappiness, as they are transient. The wise never delight in such pleasures. 23 too?
Just 21, 21, and 22. Yeah. So very, very beautiful verses. Krishna again explaining the state of the person who has given up this selfish, possessive relationship with reality. Start to interact with it as a giver. There's a deeper layer that is the vibration that is powering everything, is a deeper layer. You know, like one of the questions of modern physics, and sorry, I studied a lot of physics, so I'm like, always refer to it, but I find it very helpful because we're all under this like spell of like, we got it all figured out. And we don't. But one of the questions of modern physics is like, why is everything moving? Like, what the heck is energy? Like, why is everything vibrating? There's a reason. And if you can come in contact with that purpose, that's a divine purpose. And that's full of joy. And not only that, you're meant to come into contact with that. Krishna describes, what is that person? He's in inexhaustible bliss. We can become caught up in very, very superficial things. There's a little bit of satisfaction when the sense has an urge and it's gratified. And that little taste can capture your life and pull you into a place where you're extremely unhappy. Some of us can hear that and go, yeah, I know that's true. Some of us have to experience it. But you will experience it. And if you experience it with a little bit of knowledge, then you'll understand what's going on. It is inevitable if you just run after temporary, fleeting, momentary pleasures that are born from the contact of the sense with its object, you're going to be unhappy and become very desperate. 23, 24, 25. Shaknoti haivaya sodhum raksharina vimokshana kama krodho bhavam vegam sayuta sasukhi naraha yonta sukhotaras tathanta jyotir evaya sayogi brahma nirvanam brahma buddha virachati lavante brahma nirvanam rishaya shina kalmasha chinna vidhaya atmana sarva buddha hiterataha.
Fred?
Know that one who, before leaving the body, utilizes the opportunity of this life to check the impulses of desire and anger. He is a yogi who knows true happiness. Such a yogi sees the self within and delights in the bliss of the self within. Attaining the transcendental state, he attains liberation from matter and entry into the abode of Brahma. Sinless, free from doubt, self-controlled, and dedicated to the welfare of all living beings, the seers of truth attain such liberation.
Beautiful. Shri Krishna, beautiful. Vision. Okay, 26, 27, 28. Kama krodha vimuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam sparshan hridva bhahyams chakshurishchaivantare dhruvo pranamano samavritva nasabhyantarachairino yati priya mano buddhir mudhir moksha parayana vigatadechva bhayam rodho yasada mukta eva sam.
26, right?
Yep.
Persons of the renounced order who have controlled their thoughts, who are free from desire and anger, and who have achieved knowledge of the nature of the soul are liberated whether they live or die. Expelling from the mind all the external sense objects of sound, touch, form, taste, and smell, centering the concentration and stabilizing the incoming and outgoing breath, subjugating the senses, mind, and intelligence, dedicating himself to liberation, his desire, fear, and anger gone, such a sage is ever liberated. I am the enjoyer and...
Well, we'll read that Sanskrit last. Okay, so Krishna is describing that state of karma sannyasa yoga, which is what this chapter is named after. And he's describing this state where it doesn't matter if you're living or dead, you're in that state. That's the state of the soul. You may be in a body, you may not be in a body. And it's important to understand that it's not like you got to leave the body and then go over there somewhere to that state. It's the state that you're in. It's not geographical. It's a conscious state. And ultimately, what's fundamentally reality is consciousness. So when you're a spiritualist, you're navigating reality, and you start to understand that the only thing that exists in reality is planes of perception, planes of consciousness. So you're lifting, right, by some desire and some grace into another state of perception of reality and interaction with reality, relationship with reality. And Krishna's describing that state. And very, very profound and beautiful verse, the last verse of this chapter, super famous. Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami called this the peace formula, this verse. And it's not the peace formula necessarily for external peace, because we know external peace is not actually what's important. What's important is internal peace. And internal peace can be peaceful regardless of what's happening externally. Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvalokamaheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam yadhamam shantamrichati iti Shri Mahabharate Shatasahasryam Samhitayam Vayasikyam Bhishma Paramani Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishnananda Samapade Karma Sannyasa Yoga Nama Panchamo Dhyaya. Okay, 29.
I am the enjoyer and the objective of the sacrifices performed by persons of action, and of the austerities performed by persons of knowledge. I am Narayana, the indwelling monitor of all planes of life, the worshipable Supreme Personality who awards liberation, and Krishna, the well-wisher of all and the dear friend of the devotees. One who knows me thus attains the bliss of knowing his own origin, divine identity. His own original design.
Hare Krishna. Incredible verse. So through the past few chapters, Krishna's been talking about this principle, starting to learn to give your actions. No matter what the situation, act without attachment. Act as a sacrifice. Always participate, but participate in the mood of giving, of offering. And that is called yagya and tapasya. Yagya means sacrifice. And it's a beautiful principle of life. Remember, in the last chapter, Krishna said, if you don't know sacrifice, you will not be happy in this life, and you will not be happy in your next life. Sacrifice is the key to happiness. And then in this verse he says, Bhoktaram. Bhoktaram means I am the consumer or the enjoyer. Krishna is saying, I like sacrifice. He's at the base of reality. Like Bhoktaram Yagitapasam, I consume, I enjoy all sacrifice, And tapasya. Tapasya is another word that tapa means burn as well. Tapasya means austerity. Are you going to say, in other words, tapasya means do hard things. We should say, I am the consumer of all yogya and tapasya within reality. And if you look at reality, what's fascinating is everything's actually burning. Right? Look, you're saying, I'm the consumer of everything, of all the burning. Right? Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. And I am the Supreme Lord of all planets and all people. This word loka means both, means planets and people, beings. Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. But I am friendly to you. I'm your friend. The cause of reality, the cause of you, is your friend. You can turn to him. You can't exist without him perpetuating your existence. He is super soul inside of you. Gyatpamam Shantam Richati. If you can know me as this, I'm the Supreme Lord of everything. I'm consuming all yagya and tapasya, but I'm your friend. Can you turn to me and know me? Knowing me thus, Gyatpamam Shantam Richati. You will attain deep peace in your life. Deep relationship in your life. Very beautiful benediction, very beautiful verse at the end of chapter 5, Karma Sannyasa Yoga. Any thoughts, comments, or questions? Prabhuji, please.
I appreciate how many analogies Krishna gives in this chapter. the lotus and then the rising sun. So many nice analogies he gives to just bring it to our level so we can access it.
That's really nice to think about.
One small thing.
Yeah, please.
One small thing is like if anyone of us or any person on the street comes up and says, you know, I really like burning, I like the sacrifice, I like the tapasya of others, you'd be like, ooh. But like Hegel says, it's like, okay, I think I have to get off the bus right now. But reality is for itself and by itself. What will the absolute reality is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what's he going to be for? Something else? There isn't something else. So all things offered to the Lord are automatically causing joy in all directions. He is joy. And everything that is offered to him, all the things that we want to do, all the things that we have and do to be offered to him, that is the nourishment and the supreme happiness of all reality. But now we're like these little units of, no, I want this and I want that. It's like a little cancer cell almost, like just a little independent thing that wants to take over. So that is the cause of our problems, is this self-centeredness. And we have that option. But if you want to think that, if we want to think that we're the center, we have to have the a way to be an illusion, because it's not true. So that energy of illusion is our option. Krishna is saying, if you don't want to know me, I will give you all facility to not know me. But it's not good. You won't be happy. So this is a very sweet idea that reality is by itself and for itself. And because reality is all-encompassing, absolute reality.
Thank you, Mataji. Any other thoughts, comments, questions from anyone else? Okay. Congratulations, everybody. You all exceeded the official adult learning time capacity. Good job. Good. Jai Shri Krishna. Arjuna ki jai. Jai Bhagavad Gita Upanishad ki jai. Jai Shri Kurukshetra Dham ki jai. Jai Vishnupada Srila Bhakti Rakshaka Sridhar Maharaja ki jai. Jai Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj ki jai. And we will sing Hari Harai Nama Krishna, which is on page
66. Hari Harai Nama Krishna, Yadavaya Namaha. Hari Harai Nama Krishna.
Margadarsha Shri Guru Gaura Chandra Giriraj Ki Jai, Rupananda Prabhupada Ki Jai, and Mahaprasad Ki Jai, Jai Ganga Hopi Nirmala Prasad Ki Jai, Go Premanande.
Yeah.
Is it warm outside?
It is warm outside.
It's warm outside, but everything it's not safe.
Oh.